We'll call the regular meeting of the Tracy City Council for Monday, June 23rd, or July 23rd. To order, stand do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stand for the invocation. Pastor.
Gracious Lord God, we're grateful for the people of this community. We're thankful for those who are in positions of leadership. We're thankful for the gift and the coming of a new administrator, and we pray that you give wisdom to decisions that are made, and we pray that you give guidance that we do what is best for this community in this place. Amen.
Thank you. You've all had a chance to read the minutes for July 9th. See if there's approval for those minutes.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have approval of the agenda as written?
You have two additions, under 10L and under 12, the one's to set a special meeting for rural development, and the other's for resolution 2018-39, payment to Rainier for stabilization bond work.
Okay, with those corrections, do we have approval of the agenda?
Make a motion to approve as amended.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any conflicts of interest tonight? Hearing none, we will go to anybody in the public like to talk about something that is not on the agenda? Okay. We'll come back to the hearings. Val, you want to do your department head?
We're continuing to have a pretty good summer at the library. Little update there on the water that we got in the basement. Fortunately, it wasn't as much as it could have been. And I was happy that we didn't have new carpet and sheetrock and everything down there yet. So I think all those delays were for a reason. On June 27th, I went to the Charter Commission meeting and presented some changes that our board had put together. We knew they had a big job ahead of them, and so we put a committee together and got that done. And we had a program last week. We had about 30 people there, which was great. Our next program is next Monday at 6. We'll have global games. So, any questions?
Thanks for the good job.
All right, thanks.
Dale, do you want to? Do you have anything?
Actually, I do, but it's probably going to take a while. I don't know how that affects your public.
I have 10 minutes. Go. So did he sit down or did he come back?
I'll try my best in time
Before he starts.
I guess as far as last time I was here since the department head meeting, you can pretty much read in the paper and see the pictures of what we've been doing for the last month, especially the 2 weeks around the flood. With some of the flooding, there has been some damage to some of the fire equipment we currently have. And with some of that, actually prior to the flood, and actually prior to Chris, my assistant chiefs and I had went through the capital improvements budget that we have, and actually I talked with Shane a little bit about this, and then actually I talked to Shane about it a little bit, and then with the hiring of Chris, decided that let him get his feet wet before explaining the capital improvements, and then with the flood, which kind of now puts us to a point, in that proposal, we were looking at replacing, we have two trucks that are scheduled to be replaced real soon. One of them's actually passed and one of them is next year. And what we were going to do was combine 3 trucks into 2 trucks, keeping the same amount of seats, air pack available seats for firemen. So in the original capital improvement, the one that's attached on top, you show on the right-hand column, there's some negatives in the next 30 years in the capital improvements. What we did in the proposed one, the one with the red heading, the second page, there we went through and put in pulling 1 truck out of the capital improvement, replacing them, doing a small lease program for 5 years to make this happen this year, and it actually balanced out the capital improvements to where we were never in the negative. This was all a real perfect theory prior to a new city administrator and then a flood. Therefore, now with the flood, 2 of them 3 trucks that are on that were on that 2 for 3, are, one of them is totaled. We have not got the official, but there's no way that it won't be totaled. And the other one is budgeted at approximately $350,000 to replace next year. And the insurance company, when the city bought that truck, the fire chief at that time, or the city administrator, someone at that time, just put cash value insurance on it, and instead of replacement costs, which is what we currently have been putting on all the fire trucks for the last 16 years. So that truck that's going to cost $350,000 to replace, the insurance put a value of about $25,000 on it. I'm speculating now, we don't have all the repair bills back or estimates back, but I'm guessing we're going to be in the neighborhood of $15,000 to $16,000 to fix it. So myself saying, and in visiting with Chris, how do you throw $15,000 or $16,000 at a $25,000 truck that's scheduled to be replaced next year anyway? So, providing you this information, wondering if it's okay to pursue the avenue of potentially looking to go back to the original plan 3 months ago of replacing the 2 trucks, or getting rid of 3 trucks and replacing them with 2 trucks. Or we're stuck in the battle of the 1 truck that could potentially be totaled, having just to replace that one, then replace the pickup that we already know is going to be totaled. The 4th vehicle that we haven't discussed is another pickup that's going to be flirting with probably being totaled. Another brush truck. Do I have everybody totally confused?
Why is it being totaled?
Flood damage.
Can I pipe in? So with the electrical, what happens is it corrodes over time, and it just gets worse and worse, and you throw money at them. And
I was just asking just so everybody knew.
The 1 truck, and actually, we've had problems with 5 trucks now. The 1 truck ran fine all day of the flood. We drove it down to the flood site. It was sitting there, and it shut off. Checked everything over, everything seemed to be good, started it up, and it ran. Okay, shut it back off. We finished our day at the dump site. Fireman hops in it, makes it to the motel from the Red Rooster site, and it just shuts off. He waits 30 seconds and starts it. Starts right up. Well, we sure can't respond to a fire call with something that's dying, so we ran it down to Salmons. Next morning they started trying to do some testing on it. They couldn't really find anything, told them just to keep driving it, and I think Tony was going to the bank, and it died right in the drive up at the bank.
I helped you there.
Yeah, you did.
So, I mean, it's unreliable in that state. That's the truck that we obviously are positive is going to be totaled. The other truck is the 91 pumper that we have. There was some pump issues to it due to pumping grass and gravel and water that day. There's some pump repair. There's also some electronic repairs to be made on it and some drivetrain issues with the truck. The 3rd pickup has some very minor, had some fluids that we did change on it, and is starting to have some minor electrical issues that come and go. And then the 5th truck that we had issues with was our main pumper. Ended up replacing an alternator and some wiring, and as of right now, that has not gave us any more troubles to date. So, two options. Option A would be the proposed budget, which originally was going to get proposed to you a few months ago to do the 3 trucks for 2. Option 2, wait out the insurance game and potentially replace 2 of the 3 trucks that we were going to trade, is where we're at. I'm pretty much positive we're going to be replacing those 2 trucks through the insurance end of it, or because of the flood and the insurance part. It's just a matter if you want to proceed and do the 3 for 2 and balance the capital improvement budget.
How much time do you need, Dale, before we give you a decision?
Trucks are ordered, so I just need you to nod.
I was gonna nod anyway.
That better not.
I've been over, around, underneath, and looked at all them, and the only way to be fair to the guys that depend on them for their lives is to get rid of them 3 and go to 2. That way you know you got something that's gonna be dependable.
Let me answer your question before you go any further. Fire trucks right now are approximately 18 months out. The manufacturer that we would more than likely hope to use is the manufacturer who is out of Lyons, South Dakota, Lyons, Sioux Falls area out of South Dakota. Just quicker if we have problems, maintenance, warranty issues, they're that close versus some of the other ones that are Illinois, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. They are one of the closest, probably tied. There's Spartan and there's that one that are tied for being the location to Tracy for some of the warranty issues. They actually had said no matter what we decide to do, the 1 truck they could, if they found out from something from us this week, they have a slot open where the manufacturer would slide us in to get the 1 reliable truck at least started. The truck we're replacing still drives. The electrical issue, occasionally, sometimes it starts, sometimes it doesn't. Fortunately, if you hit it with a battery charger on boost, it'll start, and as long as you don't shut it off, it stays running at this point. So we could still temporarily use it. Probably be looking at February, hopefully February, to take delivery of the truck. As far as the pickups go, we've reached out to some of the DNR stuff like we do for the water pumps and the generators in town. They're looking, if we're going to do the 3 for 2, then we're not actually replacing that pickup. We just take the check from the insurance company and apply it to the purchase of the 3. If we do the 2 pump trucks, the 3 for 2 with the 2 pump trucks, the second pump truck would probably still hit the 18-month category, just for the simple fact they can't bump 2 spots to get us in there. They're willing to work with us due to the flood and due to the issue we're at to keep us 100% in 2 trucks. Mainly, actually, they'd be keeping us 100% in 3, but we'd have to wait our turn for the second truck.
Jesse, I think it just makes sense.
So
2 for 3.
probably a little bit much for a department head report. I actually had planned on talking at the end of the council meeting to explain this to you. I don't know if you want to act on it now or if you want to bring it back up at the end of the meeting. I can sure stick around and answer any questions you might have, give you a chance to look through the numbers and actually verify everything for yourself. It's completely up to you.
How y'all feel?
In case there's any questions, I think your offer is a good idea because it is time for the public.
And I can entertain any other questions about fire department activities at that time too, being as I rambled on about this for so long. Thank you.
We'll get back to you. Thanks. We will do the hearing for the proposed sale of the real property owned by the EDA of Tracy. Anybody here that wants to talk about that?
It's a good idea. We're gonna be moving in a nice house that's gonna go on a basement, so it's not gonna be any makeshift. They're gonna put a garage on there with it, and it's a
going to be a local owner, hopefully for sale. So it's going to take an open lot and put a house that'll be on the tax roll. We'd like to do that more and more as we have some houses that need to go here in town. So if there's no objections to that, the sale was for $1, as long as the city doesn't have, or city or EDA doesn't have any cost that go along with it. No lawyer fees, no attorney fees, no, the party will pay for the assessor's fee and everything. So we will have, we won't make any money off it, but we won't own it anymore. And the EDA is trying to get out of ownership, so.
And so everybody knows what we're talking about is those 2 lots on Morgan Street on the north side.
It's number 58 and 62, and at one point, they were separated. One was owned by the city and one was owned by the EDA, so they were having a hard time getting them transferred together. So now the EDA, that's under the name of EDA now, so we can sell that lot, so it's big enough to put a house on there, so. Anything else you need to know? Any questions about the property, we did put in the contract that it needed to be done by December 31st, or the property will go back to the EDA, just to put a date out there. I believe it'll be done in the next, I believe it'll be done in 90 days. Any other questions on that? We can go ahead with the sale.
Is there anybody else from the public that wants to speak on that? Okay, close the public hearing and...
Wait a second.
Oh, sorry.
Would you want to know the history and how the city got those lots? Why you think? That's, okay, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing and we'll refer it back to the council.
I think it's a win-win for everybody, and I'd make a motion to allow the sale of that Morgan Street property to
Do you
go
want to
forward.
just do the resolution?
Yep.
B on the second page.
Yep. Make a motion to approve resolution 2018-37.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So we have a few more minutes before our next public hearing. Jeff, do you want to go, or Chris, or whoever?
Right away. I think you'll all see this on the next. I'd like to talk a little bit more about housing again through the EDA's eyes. This is going to be on the back of the Southwest Peach. The way you've seen it, a lot of you had already seen it because I had started a new Facebook page. I wanna make sure that gets out into the public, that there is an EDA Facebook page now, and that they'll have updates. I hired someone that will put updates on that for me and keep that going. I'll run it through the EDA when I'm putting something on there, but a lot of times it's going to be I want to feature businesses here in town, or if a business has something going on, or if we got a retirement or something to that effect, I'd like to be putting that in my recommendation would be for everybody, not only on the board here, but in town, that you got a family member that moved out of town, somebody lives in the city, somebody lives in Chicago or whatever, make sure they're following that Facebook page, because there's going to be things that are going to draw them back here to Tracy. And that's one of the main reasons that I created the page, was to make sure everybody out and around knows what's going on here, whether it's financial help or whether it's moving back here, or in this one it's the housing, to make sure that everybody knows that the housing crisis that we're going to run into, and that we're going to need 100 new dwellings here in the next 10 years in Tracy to keep up, or we're going to lose more population. We need to have everybody working together on that. So that's what I got for an update for you. So it is Tracy's open for business, and that comes right up on the new Facebook page that we just, I guess, got started on Thursday night of last week. So if you're not on it, please do get on it.
and share it.
Thank you. Do you want,
Sure. You guys should all have a copy of it. It just kind of spells out kind of what we've been involved in. A lot of it's flood-related stuff. Some emergency management stuff, things like that. Me and Officer Lichty have been attending quite a few meetings. Did set up, this kind of falls into Chief Lichty's role, but set up a long-term recovery team. Kudos to him. He was the first in the state to set it up, and he's kind of paving the way on that, so that's really good. Getting a lot of kudos from people in that realm. Catholic Charities came to town. They're going to help with some assistance with some people. We did have a Lyon County Emergency Managers meeting. Ironically, we had a class on the 18th on debris management. I think Chief Lichty could have given the class on debris management, but we'll just go with that. We did meet with the League of Minnesota Cities. There's a couple things in the agenda that we'll talk about in relation to that. Budget preparation, all the departments heads received their budget worksheets and a timeline to complete that. MNLARS, they've been doing some online training. Election, Diane's been working really hard on election stuff. Voting machine training is complete. I think you have a couple judges left, right? Okay. Flood communication with multiple agencies. Liquor store, I've been working with contacts with MMBA, and upcoming stuff that we have coming up is some infrastructure response and relief potential with FEMA. And I'll piggyback on his fire truck issue in relation to that when we go back to that. That's going to be on Wednesday. Me and Shane are going to go to that. MNLARS training, property visits with the EDA director, and meeting with the the League of Minnesota Cities research attorney will be here in the next 2 weeks. That's about it. Any questions?
no, I don't have any. I'm like welcoming you aboard running, right?
Swimming.
Shane, can you do yours in 5 minutes?
I suppose, depending on how many questions you ask, I guess. But I guess, I don't know, if everybody get a chance to read the report to start with? Okay, the other thing is, just came up this afternoon, we had some vandalism in Central Park. So if anyone asks you why the bathroom's locked, that's the reason. We'll be assessing that here tomorrow morning. We just got the call here later today, so. More update. Thanks for getting that approved while I was gone. It came with the wrong size deck. Tracy Equipment, or Lyon County Implement, made it right with us, and we have a new mower deck for it. It's a foot wider than the one that's on it, so we'll be getting that picked up tomorrow. And we did get quite a few potholes filled today, so got a good start on that anyway. So that's what I have in addition. Most of the stuff we've been doing is dealing with the flood, recovering from that. But any other questions?
How many more sewer lines do we have to do just to get them all, the last couple finished?
Sewer lines.
Over the east end.
On the east end of town for the hookups?
Oh, we're down to 8, I believe.
Was today our deadline for that too?
I believe it was.
Yeah.
And it got lost. Has there been any interest from other plumbers to come in and do anything? Or?
We did have one person contacted a Marshall company, and they said 6 to 8 weeks would be the next on their schedule. I think a lot of people that excavate are fixing roads right now, so they're kind of not in a very good situation with that. But I guess right now there's another one that's possibly going to be started this week. It'll bring us down to 7, but still not where we want to be at 0. So.
And it's not that the people are not wanting to do, it's just the fact that the plumbers
The
aren't.
contractors, yeah.
Right?
and more so the excavators, getting someone to dig the holes. So,
With the damage from the floodwaters and stuff, and the fact that we don't have all them other ones connected yet, is that gonna affect, or what is the effect for, finish the overlay and finish up, and have that discussion been made?
well, ideally, they want all the connections made, because they're gonna have to do some spot digging to disconnect the old lines. I will tell you that those old lines being connected caused a little bit of troubles on our system too.
Yep.
Obviously, it would have happened irregardless of whether it's connected or not, because it's a widespread problem. But I guess, you know, the object is they don't want to come back and have patches in the road. So they'd like to get them done before putting that second lift on.
Yeah.
That's kind of the key factor. If we can get an area done, but you know, that doesn't really help, because then it's the whole mobilizing all the equipment over. So
It may sound a little far-fetched, but is there any way where we could stub it out and cap it off in the individual's properties? Or digging had to be done in the,
they are now.
so,
But it's the old mains that the houses are tied into that need to be
Okay.
dug up. So the
All right.
service lines are there, they just need to disconnect, because if we disconnect the old line, then
yeah,
no one's
all right, I'm with you. I thought there was,
Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, as far as the stubs, they're all there.
They're all
It's just getting them hooked in and,
So it's just a matter of abandoning the old lines in the street as well as from the properties.
yep.
Okay.
Some are streets, some are boulevards, but. So I guess worst comes to worst, we look at maybe doing everything they can and then closing the job out and having someone come back and finish it, but that isn't ideal either, so.
When are they wanting to come in here and do that? Did they say?
August, second week of August, I think. Second or first week. No. You're here, yeah.
Was half standing up for the last couple of minutes. Yeah, that's about right. But at this point, I mean, I don't see them being ready. Even if they're ready now, I think we've talked before. The contractor isn't going to be able to just pull up stakes wherever they are now. They need kind of some time to plan.
That's what I was wondering about the weather. I mean, we're not the only ones affected by the weather. Their other jobs might have put their timeline behind so they can't
That's
cut
what I
back.
was gonna
So
say. Are they capable of coming
Right.
It would be
So
nice
I
to
mean,
have it
before
done.
too long, I mean, I don't think, not even at the next meeting, but probably sometime in August or early September, we just might have to decide to, let's take that part of it out of Dunnick's contract, let them finish up, close it out, and then, I don't know if it gets wrapped into phase 3 or something, once the remaining 8 are done, but it's kind of hard to keep Dunnick on the hook, you know, waiting for these to get disconnected. Not on
But
the
are they-
hook, but you know what I mean, just
Are they even?
in limbo.
I mean, are they not doing the same thing other contractors are doing, or like fixing roads and not like have the time to do it right now anyway?
I don't know that they're occupied too much with that, but I know, I mean, they have other big jobs that they bid out and are working on this year. I think they have a big one in North Dakota, and you know, they fully anticipated being able to close this project out in May and June and being done and out of here, but they've been kind of waiting for this. So.
is there a possibility, I see with the special meeting set for the 30th for rural development, can we touch on this subject at that special meeting also? See where we're at and we come up with some options?
Yeah, as far as like removing it from Dunnick's contract, or
Whatever our
Just in
options
general,
are, so,
yeah.
you know, another week, now we'd have better information to make a better decision. Can we add that to that special meeting?
yeah.
Okay. Shane, are you done, or can we get back to you?
Unless you have any other questions, I'm done.
Okay. We will do the special meeting for the proposed Phase 3 infrastructure improvements Anybody would like to talk about that?
I have a quick PowerPoint, if it, I don't know, is anyone, who's here for that? Oh, hey Frank, I didn't recognize you much. Okay, well, I was gonna say, I'll still go through it pretty quickly.
A PD
Nod to you to click.
Is it in a PDF?
Yeah.
Okay. Full screen here.
This hearing is one of the boxes we have to check for rural development. It's not part of the statute 429 process, so there will be subsequent hearings. Individual notices will be sent out for people that are on the project and that would potentially be assessed. So this is more of an overview, but more detailed information will be provided for individual property owners. So the City of Tracy Phase 3 improvements. It includes sanitary collection, water distribution, stormwater conveyance, and surface improvements. Kind of the impetus for the project, there are issues with basically all the infrastructure, but the sanitary is kind of the driving and setting the priority. And the things in bold here are things that have been addressed with the Phase 1 improvements or Phase 2. Leaking wastewater treatment ponds, undersized wastewater treatment ponds, sanitary bypass structures, which are illegal, and trunk sanitary sewers aligned through private property without easements. Also significant inflow and infiltration, which results in surges in wastewater flows. Structural deficiencies such as collapses and blockages. Shared and rogue service lines, and then missing sanitary mains, which essentially is, there's no main in the street, so a service or two from houses will run a whole block before it can tie into a main that's in the next block down. Water system, undersized mains, frequent breaks, dead-end mains, undervalved, shared and rogue services again, and then the same thing, missing mains. Storm sewer, undersized, failing intakes and pipes, missing catch basins, and minimal stormwater retention facilities. So the Phase 1 improvements, which are substantially complete, and like we just discussed, final completion can be achieved upon the remaining services being disconnected or being realigned. Sanitary improvements included the removal of those illegal bypass structures, increased in the outfall line capacity, increased capacity, relocated the sanitary mains to public rights of way and easements from within private property and under houses in some cases. Some I&I reduction because we're replacing new pipes, and we're also adding some pump service stubs for people to make permanent connections to the storm sewer system. Water main improvements included replacing these missing mains, or some of them, replacing undersized and failing mains, and adding proper valving. Stormwater improvements added capacity to the downstream end of the system that drains nearly 40% of the city, and then roadway improvements. Phase 2, currently under construction, new stabilization pond system of adequate size. So remaining system issues, the I&I, the structural deficiencies, shared services, missing mains for the water system, undervalve, dead ends, storm sewer, lack of retention, some missing intakes, and then the street and sidewalk above all these utilities are not in good condition either. Phase 3, like I said, primarily governed by the sanitary system needs. Sanitary lining is proposed where feasible and no other infrastructure needs exist. But if there are water or storm sewer needs within that corridor, then the street's going to be ripped up anyway, so sanitary replacement is proposed. And in a lot of cases, lining wasn't very feasible because there were so many spot repairs needed that you would have been replacing a good percentage of the main anyway, so it's better just to replace the whole segment. Storm, water, and street improvements within the same corridor, sanitary replacement, like I said. Adding mains where they're missing to get rid of these long services that run sometimes a whole block in length. And then the entire street section will be replaced to the existing widths at this time. That's what the cost estimate and what we submitted to rural development is based on. But like we mentioned before, there are some streets that are a lot wider than they probably need to be. So that's something when we get into final design we can discuss with council and staff about potentially narrowing some streets or not putting sidewalk back on both sides if it's there, or just Now would be the opportunity to change something if we wanted to, or we can put it back as is. And then we'd also add the under drain with sump pump services, service stubs, so that people can make a permanent connection for their sump pump outlet that would connect to the storm sewer system. That under drain also helps keep the road section dry, which makes it less susceptible to frost action, so heaving. The phase 3 project area, hopefully you can see it in different colors of the different sub-phases that we looked at. And this is what rural development used to underwrite the funding for the project, but it's not what's being proposed as the funding package, but they know the rest of it is coming. So when they look at what the city's affordability is and how much grant and how much loan, what the split should be, they look at this whole thing is coming, but we know you're not biting off the whole thing right now. And then in here you can see the narrower in purple. This was part of phase 1, and then it goes north to the ponds, of course, and then the 4th and Morgan project in 2015, I believe, is included there, as well as some improvements to the 2nd Street sanitary. I think that was in the around 2010. So what we are proposing now, the next slide, Shane, is what's highlighted here as so it'd be phase 3A, C, D, G, H, and J. We left B as kind of we've talked about before how there's kind of like 2 spines to the improvements, and then things branch off from there. A and B are the 2 spines that things can branch from, but B is along Center Street, which is a county road, and that is on their capital improvement plan for approximately the year 2024, and they would be paying a significant portion of the street restoration costs. So we're pushing that off until it's on their schedule so we can get them to pay for their share, and then we have plenty to do in the meantime, so that's the most cost-effective way. Phases, I guess I haven't mentioned, phase K and L are the 2 areas of lining. So that would be the southern portion of Center, and then this area down by Randall and Main, kind of off of Front, as well as up here on Craig, and then there's a little bit on 4th and 3rd East. That's where it would just be lining the sewer, and then there'd be some excavation to make the spot repairs, like I mentioned, but for the most part, it should be trenchless activity. Funding eligibility, USDA Rural Development establishes a maximum affordability for each community. It's equal to 1.5% of the median household income, and then that's how the utility rate should be set. There's nothing saying you have to pay for it with utility rates, but their intent is that the utility systems are self-sufficient and able to pay for themselves through utility rates, and then grant eligibility begins above that 1.5% affordability. Storm sewer is loan only. The maximum RD grant amount is 75% of the project cost. We haven't received, and that's what the meeting next Monday would be, the special meeting, is to go over the letter of conditions. We haven't received the exact split on what the loan grant will be. Surface restoration is in kind, so meaning if the existing street section is 10 inches of gravel and 3 inches of bituminous, that's what rural development's going to pay for to be replaced. So we can't, anything we add is a city cost. But luckily the existing street sections, although in poor condition, the thickness is what we recommend anyway, so it's not, there isn't much vertically as far as thickness that is going to be a city expense. It's the width. So you get 10 feet over each utility until you reach 75% of the total street width, then they pay for 100%. So all these ineligible costs, which I guess I didn't include it in the slides here, but the ineligible city cost will be approximately $4 to $5 million. That includes anything that isn't within that 10-foot or after you get 75% within that eligibility swath for rural development, or things like geotextile fabric that we put under the road. It's not there now, so that is something that the city would pay for, and the under drain for the sub drainage of the groundwater from the street section, as well as the sump pump connections. So those would be part of the ineligible. So the total phase 3, we're projecting approximately 37.6 million. That includes all the soft costs, and then for this proposed, just the part that was highlighted earlier, it's just about 21 million would be the total. Like I mentioned, there's cost saving opportunities. We could replace only the RD eligible portions of the surface. That'd basically be just that 10-foot swath. Except for A Street, most of the streets within the potential project area are in need of improvement at the streets themselves. So you'd have a nice new patch and then pretty crappy surface on the outside of that and curb. Narrow the streets where feasible. We roughly estimated for each foot you narrow the road, you'd save about $1,000 per block. So it doesn't seem like a lot. There'd be some benefit, long-term maintenance, there'd be less seal coating, less snow plowing, things like that. So it's something we should at least discuss, but certainly don't have to do. And then closing streets and restoring to a greenway with a utility easement. Honestly, not sure if there's a lot of opportunity for that. If there, are driveways off or anything, you'd still have to put in an alley or something. But another way, that money could be saved, approximately $50,000 per block if we do that. So, any questions? Like I said, more of a higher level overview. We're thinking it'll be probably 4 different construction contracts over 3 to 4 years. The lining can be done, anytime, but then the reconstruct portions, we would foresee doing 3 different construction contracts, 1 per year. We don't want to put it all in one big one because that kind of prices out some good contractors that aren't huge and they have trouble getting bonded. And we don't want to do it too small, obviously, because it's inefficient and you get contractors with less horsepower and you get concerned that they're not able to finish. And it's nice to not have the entire town torn up at once, so it's spreading it out a little bit. So, any questions from council first, or open the hearing? Okay, thank you.
Anybody else from the public like to talk? Hearing none, we'll close it. Nothing more that we do on that.
There shouldn't be any action to have to take on that. Just an informational meeting.
Okay, well, we will move on then to the Boxcar Day Tracy Chamber on sale license for the softball field and the beer tent.
I would make a motion to approve all the chamber requests for the on-sale license, the street dance carnival, and street closures for the carnival and parade, and do it all in one motion.
I'll second that.
First and second, any discussion?
Because there's nothing different than normal.
No, it's all the same, I think.
Okay.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have the rural service district benefit ratio.
So that letter was in your packet. This is kind of a standard across the county for the rate. On the second page of it shows a map. This is an old map. Some of it's changed a little bit, but it gives you an idea of the properties in question. The one that for sure has changed is the solar fields over there, but that's pending for the next year. Any questions?
Do you make a motion to
Is there something that we need to,
keep the benefit ratio?
Yeah.
Make a motion.
Yep.
I'll make the motion that we keep the benefit ratio at the 30%.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have the Larson land proposal.
The dump road, Drew Larson came and seen me. It is highlighted on the picture on the next page. They're proposing that the city buy that section from them, mostly to relieve them of liability, I would assume, for the property. He sent me an email requesting that the city consider proposing or purchasing the property from him for $5,200. He does not want to be responsible for any of the closing costs. And if we have any questions, we're free to ask him.
Do they own the whole road, or how much of it do they own?
I have it up there. It's from this line here. And what we recently purchased here was Engelke's, this area here a few months ago. So Larson's would be from this point here where it connects to theirs to the road here. So
Before we act on that, I'd sure like to have it surveyed so we know what we're getting and, is it, I mean, we're gonna have to pay for it anyway. I mean, I'd make a motion to get it surveyed and then make the decision on whether to purchase it or not, so we know what we're dealing with.
What is it you think you're gonna potentially buy? The road?
That's what they're offering as a option, yeah.
The land under the road, out to the
You know
dump?
Will you come up to the,
Frank?
I can see the map, but I see it says Larson. You're talking about all of this land here?
No,
no,
just-
just the
just the
road?
road.
Okay,
It's actually in the packet, it's highlighted if you'd like to see
okay.
it.
My recollection was the city already owned it. but
That's what I was thinking, that's why,
One of the few roads in town the city actually owned versus just had a.
Easement. That's the way I understood it, but I figured that any argument could be handled if we get it surveyed and find out the legal description.
I know Matt had that done when we did the annexation. I know there's surveying out there. I don't know which parts they surveyed, but we can maybe see if we can find a copy
Dig
of that.
through that and go through to find out, because I know that road's been there since, well, my entire life, so,
Back when it was a garbage dump.
yeah.
So if that's mentioned in the previous survey that was done, that may satisfy your, otherwise go ahead and get a survey on it and get you that
Yeah,
information.
and I'd like to find out for sure who actually owns it.
Okay.
That could be one of those that was missed in the assessments and everything else that's been done, because what they show on the geomoose there isn't always 100% accurate.
No.
Yep. And it was surveyed, I'm sorry,
oh, I'm sorry.
it was surveyed during the annexation,
Potentially.
He
potentially?
doesn't know how much of it was.
Yeah, I know it'd been the south end of it would have been, wouldn't it? For that annexation of the Dollar General property.
That would have been, and I know the actual dump site has been surveyed in the past, where those records are, but I do know who did it, so we may be able to obtain copies of it that way, so. I think Mosing did that both times, so.
Okay.
I knew he'd know who it was.
Okay, then we'll just table that one for now.
Okay.
Then we have the RFP for city attorney.
So that'll come due January 1st for the city attorney contract. Do we want to put an RFP out to set parameters? Is there any changes you want to previous contract?
This contract is 3 years running now, or is it in the fourth year?
I don't know,
An
Frank,
annual
when did you?
contract.
Didn't have anything to do with it.
So, I personally would like to see, in the RFP for someone to do the type of work that Frank did for us, where they did the prosecuting in the city business. And I think that's how the original RFP was written. But there wasn't any takers, but things change over a matter of years. And I think it's just doing due diligence to, to throw it out there and see what we can get. Maybe we can save some money or get more services or whatever, so.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
So if you need a motion on that, if so, I'll make one. If not, just do it. I mean,
I can take orders. I'll draft one and get it to you.
Perfect. The agreement of assessment and waiver of irregularity of appeal for Kim Pedersen.
This is the final step in getting a sewer relocate special assessment done. The interest rate and the terms was decided in November 2017 meeting. I went back and looked at the minutes, but so I took all the information based on that, and this should be the final step for that property. So.
We need to make another
A
motion.
We'll need a motion on this, yep.
I would make a motion to approve that agreement of assessment.
Second that.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Extraordinary expense coverage loan, LMC.
So the League of Minnesota Cities has extraordinary expense coverage where a city can take out a loan for $250,000 to cover the flood. Basically, in our case, it's to cover flood expenses. For the first year of the loan, it's 0%. So it's if we decide that we want to take on this loan and put it into our flood account until we can get some of the money from insurance, possibly some state aid or possibly some federal aid, we can use this money to stop from digging into other accounts and such. After 1 year in time, it's somewhat of it's a 3% interest. What we could do is either set up and get it paid right away, and if we don't use all of it, we can obviously return that after, before the 1 year mark hits. Otherwise, after that, we can determine if we want to take the money from somewhere else to apply to that. We should, however, see the reimbursement from insurance coverages and potential state and federal aid before that year would expire. And that's kind of why they give you a year on that, so that you've got the time to work with it. It is a loan. We do have to have an approval on it to apply it, but once it's put in, we can use it for anything we need to flood related.
So do we take out the full 250 or?
I would recommend that because we don't have to use it all, but I think that we could use that all up pretty quick.
Well, I was just wondering, could we take out like 100 now and then all of a sudden we see things we need more, can we build ourselves up or?
Yeah, it talks in here about how it lays it out. I think that we can do that. I would have to double check with him on it, but I'll just kind of look in here for a second.
I mean, it's free money that we can return if we don't use it.
Correct.
I was just wondering.
That would just add more time before you have availability to use that cash.
True.
If you needed it.
I guess at that dollar amount, it makes sense just to take the full amount
0%.
and then in 8 months revisit this and say, where are we at? Did we get reimbursed? Can we pay it back in full? Should we return partial? And then at that, if we want to go past the year mark, then it's 3% if that's how we want to handle it.
And do we have any clue on when insurance would start reimbursing?
It's up in the air, but I would say that within 3 to 6 months, we should be closing with our insurance company, and the federal and state aid will probably take place within 30 to 60 days of that. But that is no promises from anybody on that, so just, we could get to the end of the year and we could have to repay the $250,000. We'll see some come with insurance distributions, but it's quite possible that we could get to the end and we'd have to make a decision. I don't want to mislead you in any way, shape, or form on that.
I think it's a good idea.
I do too.
So yeah, I'd make the motion to take the $250,000 loan, have it available to us, and go from there.
Okay.
Second.
We have a first and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. General liability insurance fly-in for Boxcar Days?
So our insurance does not cover the fly-in during Boxcar Days, and I understand that you guys have reviewed this in years past. The quote that you have, I could not get a quote in time for the meeting, but since this is time sensitive with the upcoming, it should be very close to this for the quote, and I can possibly get the quote by next Monday if you want to table it till next Monday. The person who writes the quote is out and won't be until tomorrow. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention and make sure that you are aware that during the fly-in, our insurance covering the airport will cease during the time of the fly-in.
Has it always been that way?
Yep.
Have they gotten insurance before? I've never seen.
I don't, for what we can see, no.
We haven't, no, but my question on this is, and I don't want to leave anything exposed, but we've got to be very careful on the wording of that policy that they're going to quote us, because a fly-in is extremely polar opposite of an air show. And to me, that's why we haven't gone in the past with it, because they do a pretty good job of keeping people back in the lines and off the tarmac. Whereas at an air show, you got aerial demonstrations going all the time, the crowd's exposed, and they've got other requirements from the FAA in order to do that. But it's a pittance of an expense if it covers us for a fly-in. But if it doesn't cover us for a fly-in, it'd be just like our other insurance not covering us. And
well, there's an odd situation here, and I can't tell you what happened in the past, but our airport insurance is not covered through the League of Minnesota Cities, and I don't know if it was a cost thing in the past or what. So I reached out to the League of Minnesota Cities. Our airport is separate from League insurance policy. And I reached out to the League. I'd like to get a quote from them, based on the airport and find out if we're close. Because one thing, I guess in my aspect I worry about is the overlapping coverage, and then you've got insurances, overlapping and underlapping, and you've got them deciding between themselves through litigation who's paying for what. And I think that that's possibly how we open ourselves up to this same situation here. Now, we can't get that policy changed fast enough for this potentially.
Right.
So I'll find out for sure on that. Maybe I could add that to the special council next week if that's approved.
Yeah.
And bring it. Okay.
There's the pilots that are actually flying in for the fly-in breakfast. They're going to be responsible for their own airplanes unless some of our equipment caused them to have an incident. So that's where the big differences come in.
I think the fear is for an $800 policy, which is potential. This was the last
Right.
quote from last year. We could open ourselves up to millions of dollars in liability. Potential suing or some sort of disaster.
So if somebody fell down out there, we don't have coverage for that right now?
We do now, but during a
Not during the
But not
fly-in,
during the
it is
fly-in.
named in our policy that during a fly-in, we are not covered
For anything.
for anything. All of our insurance with the airport is completely shut down at that point during the period of time that the fly-in is taking place.
There's a lot of other towns that do fly-ins. Should we maybe check with them and
Yeah, I'd say that seems kind of weird that you're
It's
not covered.
the aviation insurance
Well,
is
aviation's
weird
weird
anyway. So it's
Which is again why I reached out to the league. I feel like one, our insurance should, unless it's this huge dollar difference, our insurance should be covered by the same, throughout.
Right.
And the other question I posed to him was, what about fly-ins? Because if it's covered through there, and this is, you know, we might be saving that $800 by paying $200 more in airport insurance.
Right. Who is our current underwriter for the airport? Just
I should have known you were gonna ask me that. It's blah, blah, blah insurance.
I know them people.
I can get back to you on that.
That's fine.
I don't
was
know
just curious.
offhand. It's through the agency here in town, the same one that we
Okay,
have our.
that's good. Yep. I understand.
Carlson is our agent
Yep.
on that, but
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah,
I have to assume there was a reason it was done in the past, but that reason may not be valid anymore. So I feel it's time to due diligence and look
Yep.
into it.
I think the league, looking at the league is a good idea, see what they've got. And, like Shane said, comparing with other towns for their services, what they are doing. Because we don't have,
And specifically spell out what
yeah,
we're actually doing out there.
You can see if there's stunts or something, but not.
that's
Yeah,
when I'd
just
want a
say
lot of
fly in,
insurance,
that's what
yeah.
I think that we're
It's,
doing.
as long as it's just your normal arrival departure, I'm not sure. But an insurance company being an insurance company, they're gonna say, oh, you had a group out there that wasn't normally there, so we're not gonna cover you. You may call it a fly-in, but we call it an air show, so you're not covered type thing. And conversely,
Yeah.
with the air show coverage and, yeah, a little more.
Would you like to table it until
Yeah.
next
We'll
week's
do
special
that,
meeting?
Yeah.
check into that for
Okay.
us.
Yep.
The liquor store ADA compliance,
So, League of Minnesota Cities was here. They have a team that does for cities, or liabilities that are out there, and their focus this year is ADA compliance. The liquor store currently does not meet all of the ADA. Shane and myself went over there. We have some problems with there's not a landing pad in front of the door. There's not, let's see, I think the 96-inch wide requirement by parking, we don't have any designated parking by the liquor store. We brought it up at the liquor store committee meeting, which was shortly before this meeting, and we talked about it a little. There's a few options with potentially putting a parking spot out into the gravel parking lot to the west, and maybe placing a door on the west side of the building. That might be a little bit more cost effective than what we would potentially have to do, and Shane could probably speak more about this. We'd have to lower the doorway and then have the ramp inside the facility so that the door itself would actually be lower, so that we could have a flat landing at the beginning of the ramp and a flat landing after the ramp. Right now, the ramp goes right up to the door and stops at the threshold of the door. So that's part of it. There were a couple other small things, some signage and stuff that we needed to take care of, and then self-closing door for the restroom. There's two ways to do the restroom thing. We can make it a non-public restroom and not worry about it, or we can put a self-closing door mechanism in it. And other than that, the rest of some of the stuff was non-applicable to us. We did look at some other stuff around town. Some of the other 88, we passed most of the other things. There's a few things that Shane was gonna look into for park, and the potential for some striping. We had some parking lot spots that no longer needed to be ADA across the street in the parking lot that was original, because of the one that was put on the road. So whether we wanna restripe that or vacate those as positions, that's something that.
Those have signs too, don't they, Shane?
Out front, yeah.
I mean, in the parking lot,
They used to, they don't.
you know, anymore? Okay.
You can hardly see the lines now, so.
His suggestion was actually to vacate those spots
Yeah.
and turn them into standard parking spots. And then if we felt we needed more, to put another spot out front.
I was just looking for a cheap sign to put on the west side of the liquor store.
Oh, well, we probably have them somewhere.
Got one hiding somewhere?
I think we have a
If
few.
we put one on the west side of the ramp, that would help a little bit. I mean, it's not gonna get rid of all this stuff, but it certainly would get rid of that and then just make it a non-public restroom.
And we did ask him about putting a sign in the parking lot, if the gravel was considered, if that would meet the standards, and it does, so.
Well, I would suggest you put one on the very south quarter or two on the west lot and mark them handicap and enforce them as such. And
Okay.
Like any other inspection, if you work your way towards completing all the tasks, they'll give you some room.
And this is, this is lead guidance.
Yeah.
So it's not, we're not in trouble, we
No.
didn't not meet anything.
But
Just-
those are
we should
simple
be
things
moving
that people
forward.
can see from
Yep.
right away. It's,
How many spots would you like, one or two?
all it's required is one. They just
Yeah.
do one.
And then his recommendation was out front to put another spot. Do we want to do that, or
Out here,
out in front? Yes.
from
All from the league?
the league.
Yeah, yep, Tony Walsh.
Can I get my spot right out there, signed with mayor sign on it for Monday night?
We can put mayor parking on. It's right behind city administrator parking.
But if the mayor's handicapped, then you need two more.
And didn't planning and zoning already approve that?
No, that was for customer parking. So. That didn't have anything to do with handicap.
And again, out front was just a suggestion. I told him that I really don't think we've had any problems with it, and we meet the compliance with the one. So,
I would say if somebody says, hey, I have to go around the block twice in order to park, if that happens, then put up a second one, but if it doesn't, I wouldn't worry about it.
It hasn't really been a problem,
no, I don't think so.
especially now since the Masonic building's gone.
Right?
Okay. So one sign on the south side of the liquor store and
And vacate. the
Big 8 to
ones
2 on the,
In the parking lot.
yes, okay.
Do we need to put a sign on the bathroom saying it's not a public restroom? Saying employee use only or something?
Or we could put a self-closing door mechanism.
You just get spring-loaded hinges.
Oh, so it's not that big.
Pretty minimal
Oh,
for that.
then let's do that.
The landing is the one that,
Talking $20 maybe for a self-closing.
Yeah, it's the entryway.
that's the concern or the expensive part of it.
And there's no way of changing that without moving the floor down or the whole street up.
is the landing on that very east door, is that angled too, or is it level there? Just
Through the old bar area?
through the old bar area, I'm just,
Angle, but it's better.
Oh, yeah, is it? It has to have some kind of angle to it. I don't know, I don't think the hill's that steep there, but
Yeah, I was gonna say it's angled, but it's better than the other side.
the west side. If worse comes to worse, versus trying to do any remodeling or anything, you could make that the entryway for handicap accessible, and so you could, whoever's working the counter can wait on them in person.
Could I ask that as a liquor store committee, we discussed this and we looked at a couple options. Can we go back to,
Sure.
everybody's gonna kind of look at it and then bring that portion of it back to you at a later date?
That sounds fine.
Okay.
That'll work.
Tracy Development Corp. RFT proposal.
Changing hats a little bit now. Dale Johnson, with me tonight I have John Lanou. We're here representing the Tracy Development Corporation, the nonprofit organization that owns the former Red Rooster property. We're here tonight because we're currently working with a developer who is really close at purchasing the property from us. What's being handed out to you is the potential design for a $3.5 million service station, or not, gas station, car wash, in the city to be put on that lot. Right now, they're facing two hurdles to actually sealing the deal, us selling the property and them starting construction. One of the two hurdles is something on their end with a feasibility study. Hopefully in the next couple weeks, actually by the end of next week, they should have that resolved. Fairly optimistic that that's going to work. The other item that they're looking at is for their cash flow for the service in and out of the door, foot traffic. putting a liquor store in the gas station would be huge to them in being able to build this building. So they asked us to bring the plan to you this evening, to lay it in front of you and ask if the council would at least entertain the thought of potentially selling the liquor store and opening up liquor licenses to public entities or to private businesses in the community. Not looking necessarily for a sole license. They're looking for it to be opened up to any business in the community to try to offer more foot traffic, more sales, more revenue to help them compensate doing a $3.5 million building. In a closing thought, I guess, before we entertain any questions that you'd have, one of the things that they stressed just recently today is at no point in time would they ever want to see the current liquor store closed. They would be willing to, on their end, at least even entertain possibly running it till their facility got up and running, including all the staff and everyone. So, with that being said, that's what we're here tonight to propose to you on their behalf. I can entertain any questions other than their names. On the plan, you will also see the only name on the plan is the company who drew the plan, and even by contacting them, they have no information as who the investors are, and they wish to remain anonymous until they have all their eggs in the basket, which potentially could be the end of next week.
I think it's great.
So the proposal would be the travel center, or the convenience store and liquor store would face 14.
It would be as you're looking at it and viewing it, it would be a strip mall with a automatic car wash in the back, diesel islands. They would offer, potentially looking at offering on-road and off-road diesel, gas islands in the front. And you have to forgive me, I just got this plan here this afternoon from them. And then as you can see, there is currently a laundromat drawn into between the back of the grocery store, or back of the gas station, and between the car washes. There actually be a laundromat with a sitting area for eating the pizza, whatever fast food they put in there, whatever restaurant type environment they'd put in there, and then also semi-truck stop thing, a place for people to stop and watch the Weather Channel.
Do you have any idea what hours they think they're gonna do?
No idea on the hours right now. Part of that will be based on the feasibility study, the traffic count, the target times that the roads are busy. There's a large stretch of Highway 14 between east and west of here where there's nothing of this magnitude. So this is why they're looking at it. And they do currently operate 2 other facilities like this. So our job tonight was ask you to entertain selling the liquor store, and that's what we did. If you have any more questions, we'll take them. Otherwise, we'll get out of your hair.
When would they like an answer, Dale, do you know?
You know, part of this would probably come up to how the city would have to handle this, as having the city connection as the fire chief. I'm assuming this would go to an RFP because you can't just, I'm assuming it would have to go to an RFP of, you know, what the city would want to do. I believe they would entertain, if they were to get it, they would entertain taking over at the first of the year.
And we had the liquor committee meeting tonight too, and we have discussed this in the past, potentially selling the liquor store license. So I would say we'd be smart to at least entertain it and have them work down their lines. I don't know if we could guarantee them right away that we would sell it. It'd be one of those we'd have to discuss it, and then the city would have to vote on it in some way, shape, or form, I'm assuming.
My assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, would be that something like this would almost have to go to a RFP so you could open it up to anybody. I mean, if any business owner you know, if,
You can't limit it, like, we'll sell the liquor store as long as you put this up. You can't put that in there. So I actually know a little bit about liquor store municipal, because one neighboring town 10 miles away just sold to a friend of mine. It's complicated but manageable. You're not a municipal liquor license is not something you can sell.
Right.
A municipal liquor license is actually kind of you're not allowing anyone else to have a liquor store in town. So, as far as, I don't know if they're asking for to be the only or anything. That's all based on our community size and stuff, and I'd have to research that.
You're talking about additional licenses.
Yeah, I don't think, you can't limit it. You can't limit it, from my interpretation, you can't limit it to just one person.
If there's gonna be a sole proprietor, it has to be the municipality.
Correct.
I think you can have up to 2 with our population. It's been a long time since I looked at that.
You might, other towns this size have
Right.
2, possibilities, because they will have another one. Now, you could sell the liquor store, like the inventory and equipment, and the building. They can't be tied together, I don't think, but I'll look into that.
Yeah,
So
with a simple ordinance change, you could sell the building with the bar over there so somebody could come in and open up as another bar. All you'd have to do is take out the kitchen part. Because I believe that's a local ordinance, because you had a municipal liquor store.
Yeah.
Said if anybody else is gonna sell liquor, you gotta have a kitchen. But if you take that out of the ordinance, means we're out of the business anyway.
The city has complete control over what it wants to do with the
That would make
municipal
that
liquor license.
potentially saleable
And-
property there, so.
Yep. So, they're asking for like a price on the liquor store, or I'm sorry, not a price, but a request for purchase?
officially, yes, that's what
Okay.
they're looking for. Is the council willing to entertain what them or anyone else would be willing to offer for the liquor store, therefore by putting it out there for public bid?
Yeah, because you couldn't sell the license, you're just selling them.
So an ongoing business like that, and I'm thinking out loud here, I would think that you would want to sell based on your inventory at the time of the sale, like a percentage or something like that, because we can't maintain, we don't want to liquidate inventory. We give them an inventory that we have now. We're not going to maintain some of that inventory because some of it we don't want to restock.
And Sleepy Eye did this approximately a year ago. They had somebody purchase their, well, again, they didn't sell the license, but they relinquished the municipal to a private individual, and he bought all of their inventory.
And you can set it up so that dates overlap and you never close the liquor
Yep.
store, and, like did you say first of the year?
That was
Like
one of their thoughts. Their intention
January
is,
1st, 31st, we're done.
Yep.
And January 1st,
And
they
that's,
open.
that's what Sleepy Eye did.
and they'll run that facility, it will close at 10 o'clock on Wednesday night, the last night it's gonna be downtown, and it'll open for business at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock Thursday morning. I mean, they want absolutely no interruption in their proposal. And what their proposal would be absolutely zero interruption to the offset.
I don't see any reason why we wouldn't entertain it. I mean, you'd have to, I don't know what the advertising would be that you'd have to do, but I see no reason not to entertain it. I mean, a $3.5 million project on Highway 14, the tax benefit far outweighs what any loss of potential revenue would be.
And the potential for a second one.
Right.
I mean, the potential for someone else to
open one up, and then there's more tax revenue there too, so. It'd just be a matter of how do you word the RFP, or how do you approach it?
Well, you can't put too many limitations on it. You got, I mean, if a local person wants to buy it, then they gotta have the same right that these guys will, regardless of what else they're putting. And so the council would have to set limitations to RFP of how they would want it, the parameters. Do you want it in a specific location in town? Do you want, I mean, whatever is, and, some of that would have to touch base with Matt on.
Could we limit it to that we could take in, 15, 20 RFPs on it, but we're only gonna select one? That there's still only gonna be one liquor license in town?
I believe that you can limit the number of license, even below, like, we can have up to 2, I think, but I think you can limit it.
You can limit it beyond that. Let me get my head wrapped around this again on this RFP. Are you talking, when you're asking about this RFP, are you talking just strictly about the liquor store operation and not the building? Or are you talking about the real estate and the operation?
There is not a lot of interest in the building itself.
Okay.
If that's how the city chooses to write the RFP, then I guess that would be up to you guys as to if you want to, try to do it all in one. Obviously, what's the contents in the building, as far as the liquor contents in the building, not so much the shelving and the stuff like that. Anything that's not really bolted down, I guess, would be what they would be interested in the building. And, obviously, the use of the building until their facility would be built would also be something that they would love to have.
That's what's got to be understood before you write a.
But again, that all falls back into what you guys decide you want in the RFP. And again, they're just one of the, I'm assuming, many entities that are gonna go towards this, because there is interest in other businesses in town that want
to do it. And it's just a matter of if that's the way we decide to go. We pick a date when the community is done and the privates can open the next morning type thing.
Yeah, you just do an inventory that night and run your sheets, and they can audit and do whatever. I would assume that with RFP, we can put some restrictions on it as far as like building size and building, things like that. It's something that we'll have to look into a little bit further. If there's certain parameters you want me to look up on this, do you want a new facility, an existing facility,
Yeah, that's a lot of thinking.
If we want to, well, and you got to look at it from the business standpoint of it. If we were to get rid of a potential asset, in other communities, municipals make money, and ours hopefully will at some point. So you have to look at it as that it is an asset, hopefully, moving forward. So you want it to maintain being an asset. So how much would we make off of it versus how much taxes could you take in the year?
Just out of curiosity, Shane, what would taxes on a $3.5 million building be?
You take a check?
Look at Dollar General's taxes bill, and you could easily double it. And I think Dollar General's was like 30,000 last year, if I remember right. One of the two out there was up in that 26 to 30.
Do they have any estimation on the whole complex, how many people they'd employ too?
Not at this time, because a lot of it hinges on whether the liquor part comes into it.
Okay.
As you can see, Westmore did a very nice job drawing this up to try to, obviously keep the tills and everything to where it is efficient, but, I mean, just referencing the other convenience store in town, look at the number of employees that are there at any set time, and the square footage here, is obviously larger, therefore I would assume it would be more employees than there. A lot of working parts in that drawing.
Yes, there are.
Any other questions we can answer for you guys?
Like Dale said, it's just a sticking point right now for these guys. So it's one of the two items they're waiting on, and they want to know if there's a shot at it. So Just trying to help it along here.
So what do you need, Chris, like to look up some of the stuff? How much time you?
Parameters would be the thing that I would focus on the most, because we can't, you know, again, we can't tailor it for a specific buyer, but we can tailor it what's best for the city. So what, you know, what parameters do you want? Do you want it to exist out of the old building? Do you want it to, you know, you can't, I think you can't sell we're not selling a business. That's the thing, is that municipal, it's not an operating business that can be sold. So I would assume that the, you know, the chattel, what's inside the building would be one, and the building would be another sale.
So do we want the liquor committee get together again the next week and try to set the parameters down? Because
if that's what the council
is the council gonna, so we're hopefully having a meeting next week too? A council meeting?
Yeah, 30th.
So we could meet next, like the liquor committee, come with ideas for that stuff. Get together, we could have potential items to work towards. And then
Maybe have the liquor committee meet before the council, the special session.
Yeah.
Give some parameters of what I'll do some.
At least have some general guidelines, and then we can discuss it all again.
Yeah.
See if it's somewhere we want to go down.
Does that meet the time frame for you guys?
The fact that you're entertaining it will make them very happy.
That was gonna be my question. You could pass that along to them.
Because when they clear and I'm optimistically saying, when they clear their next hurdle next Friday, this will be literally the one thing standing in between this happening. So at least if the ball's in motion, there's dialogue about it, they'll be very happy.
I'll look into the legalities of how and if we can sell certain portions of it, and I'll communicate with some that have sold them previous. And with Sleepy Eye, you said they did?
Yeah, and that was about a year ago that
Okay, so
the
that'd be
muni closed and the private opened up.
Okay.
Cottonwood did the same thing, but that's been
quite a while.
7-8 years ago now, I think.
And like you
That
said,
was lock, stock, and barrel.
Lenzburg, Minnesota, it's small, but they just went through it, so. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Which brings us to our setting the special meeting for July 30th.
We have to advertise all the content of the meeting, or just call it a special meeting?
I don't think so, because, no, it's just,
Yeah.
you're just setting it up for review, so it's
Right.
not, you're not making a decision at that point. Shane? What do you think?
In the past, we just noted what the meeting was about.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we could put it out.
As long as we have a 3-day notice, it's the main.
That's what I was, the advertising time, but yeah, then I would say we'll set a special meeting for July 30th to discuss the rural development application, east side of town sewer hookups, the loan, and
Liquor store.
potential liquor store options.
Would 6:30 work? Jeff from USDA Rural Development requested 6:30. He could be here by then. Okay. I'll let him know that that's when it'll be, and
Okay, we want to go,
I need a second or?
do we need a second?
vote
Do
to-
we need a motion for that?
You made
I made a motion.
I'll second it.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do we have a motion for Resolution 2018-36, approving State of Minnesota JT Powers Agreement
Joint powers, yeah.
with the City of Tracy on behalf of its city attorney and police department?
I would make that motion.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. With Resolution 2018-38, authorizing solicitation of contributions to fund events for the foster positive relationships between law enforcement and the community.
That's specifically for National Night Out.
National Night Out, yep.
It's awful
It's just
wordy.
awful, yeah. Would have been a lot less tongue
What
twisting if
attorney
we
wrote
could have just
that
said
one?
National Night Out.
I would make a motion to approve Resolution 2018-38.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 2018-39, approving payment to Reiner Contracting for work completed on the stabilization plan.
This one is in the amount of $141,574.15. The previous 4 applications averaged about 600,000, so just by the amount, you can tell how little work they've been able to get done. It's July 23rd, and they've had 19 rain days this month already, so. But they're working today. They're going to be working Saturdays here on out. They're, to quote them, hopefully optimistic that they'll still be able to get things done this year, so hopefully that's the case.
Bottom line on the resolution states 14,574. Is that a typo?
Yeah, should be 141.
141 all the way to the bottom. Good. I'd make a motion approving resolution 2018-39 to Rainer Contracting for 141,574.15.
Second that.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Christie, that's the last original. Appreciate it.
Municipal accounts payable without breakthrough beverage.
I'd make a motion to approve the municipal calendar for the municipal accounts payable without breakthrough beverage and for the municipal accounts receivable.
Second?
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd make the motion to approve breakthrough beverage account payable.
I'll second.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Unfinished business land proposal for Rosemary Martin.
So this is kind of the backwards way of doing it, but basically, if the city I'd like the city to, or I'm sorry, the mayor and council to look at this. If you like this, propose it back to Rosemary to avoid any confusion on anything. This is removing the curb that is currently there and putting in drive-over curb. And then the potential parking problem would then be, Rosemary would be able to put all of the vehicles on her own land, mark it however she wants. It's not the city's, we're not involved in telling people where to park or how to park. Shane and I measured it out, it's about 65 feet. We looked at the sidewalk that was put in for the municipal, take the 2 sections out of the sidewalk. We would take the cost of the drive-over curb, which, Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, was about $600 that we had.
For materials cost.
For materials, yep. And then some labor, city employees would be able to do it. And then for that, we would get a 99-year easement for the alleyway, for it to be worded however. This solves all our problems, and as far as parking, we would plow up to that drive-over curb. And the only parking problems that we could foresee is if anybody wasn't far enough on the curb, and that would be something that she would have to relay to her residents.
So does that start right behind the building?
No. If you're looking at, David, look at that. You see we're right behind the building, and then you see there's that sidewalk. It would start at the sidewalk. There'd still be a little small area of a backyard there, see?
Got it. Yep, I see
Okay.
now.
And we discussed taking the sidewalk out just to alleviate that whole thing.
So the sidewalk she's talking about where the curb would start is, there's a new sidewalk that you don't see off the back of that building. That just has a built-in,
Right.
or an overhang there.
Yes.
Well, I think this meets everything you were wanting to accomplish, getting parking for your tenants and
Having an
gives us
alleyway.
the
Yeah.
easement for
Yeah.
the alleyway and everything, so.
And it alleviates the private parking signs because it would be on private property.
I'll be honest, I'm not gonna just say what you just said. I'm just gonna say, so moved. That. And then we will take out the curb, but the other costs are split.
The cost of preparing and filing the easement. The
Is
new
split.
easement for the alleyway will be split
Split,
between the
right.
city and the property owner.
And I'm checking with my attorney to see if it would be cheaper for my attorney to do it than the city attorney.
Sounds fair? I'll make the motion that we follow Chris's recommendation.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Wait,
Took us a while to get there, but.
she has to accept it now, right?
Oh. Have you-
I don't know, you better get to the podium and say that.
Oh, I better get back over there, could you?
The utility rate discussion?
So the utility rate, you asked about what was done in the past, and Diane actually found it. What happened is the first is to decrease the surcharge from $12 to $6 and add a $4 storm sewer surcharge. So that was the first part of it, and you had discussed that last time. So it created the new surcharge total would go from $12 to $10, and that is what took place. The second change, it was to increase, and it was increased by 25% per unit. And, the sewer rate was increased by 25%, and the water rate was 20 cents per unit, and the sewer rate 40 cents per unit. And then there was a $2 surcharge that was left in place to fund and maintain the piping and the curb stop as is. So that is what was done in the past, whether you want to mirror anything like that. I will tell you that we just found out today that Minnesota Rural Water Association is who has that forecasting software. And Jeff from Rural Development helped us find that out today. I did reach out to him. I didn't get to him today in time. Probably missed call on my phone. But we could do some forecasting with that, and that's provided to us for free. So.
That's a lot better rate
Yeah, I'd play around with a few different scenarios on that, but would we just look at increasing the unit again?
Yeah, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if we go as much as we did last time, but we haven't been doing a very good job of keeping up with the increase.
But that's where you can plug in 25% again, and you
Yeah.
can plug in 18%, and
And he'll actually work with us on some requirements that we have for the USDA Rural Development right now.
We gotta break it into three rates and.
Yep, some of the numbers that they're requiring from us, we could get for this as well, through this forecasting software.
sounds perfect to me.
Well, so, in lieu of waiting for that information, do you wanna raise it or wait until they get some information before you raise it? So we don't forget it again is my only point.
Well, can we put it on the first one in August? Is that too far out? Because then we could have different scenarios.
That
Be
might,
about the
I
same
think
time
it'd be
as
nice
last time.
to be able to hear what he has to say about that.
for revenue budgeting, it might be handy to have it done before.
Sooner rather than later.
You can get it into next year's budget.
So if we'd have it on the first meeting in August, is what, the 13th?
Yep.
So if we'd have it on the 13th, how long do we have to wait before we can implement it?
There's 30 days at a time, well, you gotta, because it's an ordinance change.
We-
Is it done by ordinance?
thought we changed the resolution.
It's a resolution.
Resolution.
Yep, and we do go 2 months behind on
Yep.
it, so it would, you know, the day that you set it, it won't take in effect for the 2 months.
For 2 months. But, yeah, that should still give you enough time to do your revenue forecasting for your budget and give you a chance to get the information, play with some numbers to see where we gotta be. That,
Yeah, I would say do a few realistic
yeah.
checks on it and then have it ready by the 13th.
Okay.
My big thing is we don't forget it again.
Right, well, put it on the agenda right away.
Yeah.
Diane won't forget. I will, but
She won't let you forget, let's put it that way.
Right.
Solar garden field weeds.
I did make contact with the solar garden out by Swift Lake. They're going to take some of their silt fencing down and get some of those weeds cut around the facility. But based on the lease, they're going to leave us responsible with all the weeds in the field.
So can anybody farm that little bit that's left? I thought
Yeah.
Lanús were gonna farm that.
Problem is, and this is why I kind of disagree with their decision on leaving it all to us, is because we didn't farm that because they were in the way. You know, so next year we are going to farm it.
Yep.
Whatever's left. You know, because they had to get that easement through there. They had to build those utility poles through there, temporary road. So, you know, we kind of went out of our way for them. But I guess looking at it, just taking the disc out there and leveling it all down and spraying it, so. I don't know what else we can really do there. The weeds that are as tall as they are, so,
Yeah, they're as tall as I am.
yeah.
When I'm standing. That's too bad they're doing that, because it's like,
I know last year they went and sprayed them all. But now it changed hands to a different company, so.
so that got sold to a different company?
Yeah, that's,
They got a developer that sells it to
The
more or less the
operator.
builder, and then they think they sell it again to the operator, the final owner, so.
that's where the money's made.
So I think it's one of those that's gotta be cleaned up one way or another.
Well, it does, and they're gonna have a whole lot of fun farming that next year.
Fire department can burn it.
Training exercise.
That's the problem, is next to all those solar panels, it's kinda hard to burn any of it off, so it pretty much has to be leveled and
Yep.
cut and leveled.
We got water walls, we can protect it.
Just get it took care of.
Make them go away.
Yeah.
Because they have them do what they're gonna do and we go in and clean her up. Not much.
Okay, I'll report back on you and see how well they did.
See how wet it is. That's the key thing out there.
We can give you a hand sprayer.
I'm just good at looking at it when I'm walking
Oh.
around it. New business, Diane mentioned the fact that if we can get it out on TV, that we are still looking, and in the papers, for election judges for the general election in November. So if anybody would like to step up and help us out with that, we need to get you trained very soon though, like really soon. So please let us know if you're interested in doing that. Do we have any else, Mayor, Council?
Were you all done, Dale?
No,
I don't think so.
We gotta go back
Unless you
through.
just nodded.
We gotta go back through and,
Oh, come on up here, Dale. Come on down.
So to take a step backwards, did you just get my email, Shane?
You send me one?
Yeah.
Look out the refresh.
I just sent Shane a PowerPoint that I believe most of you have seen. For me talking about this, I referenced truck numbers. For some of you, truck numbers don't really mean a lot. So while he's looking for it and getting it fired up, the original proposal, can I borrow your sheet? I printed out.
Nothing yet.
Okay. So if we start at the original proposal, or the original capital improvements would be the top sheet, the non-red sheet. You show as we start replacing trucks, we start finding deficits of nearing $100,000 in years. When you get to the proposed sheet, and again, this is before any insurance, anything at all, is when this was done. When you get to the proposed sheet, we actually never hit a deficit and actually balance fairly well through 2040. Covering all expenses, and all the expenses listed in there are based on the NFPA timeframe for replacement of all that equipment. You get it yet?
Just to simplify it then, Dale, what you're saying is you're gonna replace one pumper and 2 grass rigs?
Year 28, for the PowerPoint, file 2018.
Is that the 3 vehicles we're talking about?
So what we're looking at in this proposed, what's in this proposed is actually replacing the 91 pumper, the 2001 crew cab that has the rescue winch on the front, pulls the Ranger, and has a skid unit for wildland fire, and trading in or selling off the 2004 International. When the 2004 International was bought, it was bought as our primary attack truck. It was stretched out to the max to put all of our rescue equipment and everything on it. When we combined the 2 trucks after that and did the combination of our rescue van and our our first truck out, our first response truck, into the one big truck, we moved a lot of that equipment over onto that big truck. Now, 1117, which would be the International, is now our back door truck, and it's longer than it needs to be to make alleys, make connections.
This one, Dale?
Yes.
So it's 2 pumpers and a pickup?
2 pumpers and a pickup for 2 pumpers.
2 pumpers.
So,
And that still meets all the needs that you guys have.
actually, we still keep the same number of seats. We keep the same number of seats. Trying to watch. Next slide. This would be the crew cab pickup with the rescue bumper. We don't have the skid unit in it for the photo. This truck's scheduled to be replaced in 2020. This is the truck that right now is totaled. Next, please. Just while we're here, this truck is the other truck that's borderline issues. That'll be something that we'll probably just replace with another used truck, pending what we come up with the insurance if they do total it. This is the 91 that has the issues that obviously replacement cost of, at this time we've put it in there at 325, it's approximately 350,000. And one more, Shane. This is the 2004 that actually does actually hold some decent value yet as far as trade-in. So the thought process prior to any of the flooding, any of the insurance stuff, was if we can trade this truck, the other truck, and that pickup, both of the 2 pump trucks only hold 2 people, 2 passengers. We would actually replace it for two crew cab trucks, keeping the same number of seats. What we're actually looking at doing is, with all of our pump trucks getting larger per requirements and per equipment we have to handle, we have nothing for off-road field use other than pickups as far as a pump truck. What we would look to do is actually replace 1117 with a shorter bodied 4-wheel drive chassis crew cab truck that could be used in the wintertime for getting to fires during snowstorms, could be used for any type of wildland setting that has a structure involved in it, could be used for any sort of vehicle stabilization. We'd put winch points on all 4 sides for any sort of rescue in an off-road situation or even an on-road situation. We'd be able to use it. These wildland trucks actually come rated with a high pressure system, the same rating as this truck, and come with a little bit less pricey of a tag. The 91, the GMC pump truck, we would actually replace that with a mini pumper, they call it. It'd actually be a crew cab pickup chassis, very similar to your husband's service truck, the white service truck he has. Except on it, it would have roll-up doors on the side. It would look like the back half of this truck, except a lot smaller. That truck is our third pumper. That is the truck that helps us maintain the ISO rating that we have, which saves everybody in town money on their insurance. And versus being a $350,000, $375,000 truck, it's a $200,000 truck. So by not having 3 big trucks and combining 2 big trucks and a pickup, buying a smaller truck and using that for pulling the ATV or the UTV to rural calls, it can still be used to throw a drop tank, it can still be used to fill all the grass rigs, and it puts us leaving our big truck, 1118, I keep referencing the big truck, that has all our rescue tools and everything. When we're on a rural grass fire, anything like that, this truck would stay in town, where now this truck ends up out there. Because personnel, we're hauling personnel in it. This would free up all the resources that are on that truck, still be in town to be able to respond to car accidents, fire alarms, structure fires, any type of call. So 3 to 2 makes sense number-wise. Obviously, not many people ever want to give up a vehicle once you've obtained it, but it obviously would save us insurance money in the end. And as you go through the numbers, Excel doesn't lie, it shows that it balances.
And you guys are still covered for everything you need.
We actually, just because of how things change, we will be bettering ourselves pump-wise, pump capacity-wise, just because the simple fact it's a $2,000 option to better ourselves pump capacity-wise. I don't think it's going to be enough to change our ISO rating to the better anymore, but for $2,000, if anything were to ever change, we'd have that extra 500 gallons a minute. Pretty much a no-brainer.
In the long haul, you're gonna have less maintenance because you're gonna be a vehicle. Sure.
And that's where the interface truck, you know, we are eliminating a grass rig, a brush truck. You know, the interface truck will be able to get out there and do some off-road activities. And to use the scenario, we had a tractor fire a few years back, and tractor was out in some pretty rough terrain. Just so happened he was doing the old furrow plowing. You know, for those of you that don't know furrow plowing, it's a rut's about like this, and we're out there bouncing around with pickups, and I honestly felt like we were in the old-fashioned bucket brigade where everybody in town was lined up chucking a bucket of water at it, because we'd pull out there with 200 gallons of water and literally take it off and go back to the road and fill. Finally ended up dragging hose and connecting hoses all the way out there off a pump truck because we had no way to get out there to get the fire all the way out. Other option, we ride the insurance thing out. Unfortunately, you know, this truck, 1116, the 91, is scheduled to be replaced next year. So next year we'll be having this discussion. We'll be bringing it to the table. I just don't feel that I'm doing a financially responsible part of my job by spending money on a truck that we're going to be getting rid of in a year.
Haven't looked at that one real close. I've never seen.
The problem I have with that is I'm having a hard time with anybody who wants to actually write a quote on it because it's that old.
It's that old, and it's.
That electrical component part that I showed you,
I bet you can't find one.
They can't find it.
Yeah.
I actually spoke to the League of Minnesota Cities adjuster on this truck, on the 91 GMC, right?
Yes.
I spoke to him about that one, and one of the things that the League of Minnesota City adjuster is worried about is, his words, marrying ourselves to this truck. Once we stick that kind of money into it, Where do we stop? And once we've stuck that kind of money into it, we almost have to spend more to not go backwards.
Well, I'm of the opinion that one needs to go.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't
it's
think that
just,
would make
just,
sense at all.
just from what I've seen looking at it.
So back to the insurance portion. We could replace what we have. We could get rid of, in this plan, that 91's gonna go away, we're gonna replace it with a mini pumper. Instead of spending 350,000, we're spending 200,000 to buy this mini pumper, 225, we haven't bid them out totally yet, just going by what they normally run. With that, then the crew cab pickup, then we go ahead and replace that. Now we run them out, we end up in 7 years being in a deficit and having to try to figure out a way to fund replacing the next truck.
Can I stop you for a second? And maybe you're not aware of this, but we don't have the full amount to replace that crew cab. We would have to kick in some to be able to replace it.
Correct. The pickups.
That's an additional cost, just if you're not.
The pickups are at actual cash value, not at replacement cost. The other problem we run into with the pickups is when we buy a pickup, we put all the lights on. We do all the wiring, or I should say, we as in firemen or the city public works that takes and does them for us. By doing that, it's not an additionally assured on our policy. If we took it to a truck manufacturer and had them do it, it would now become part of the pickup. So we're looking at whatever they feel that truck's worth the day that it was wrecked, the day that it was totaled as far as our value. So we're not actually looking at getting a lot of insurance help towards this, but, and I'm just gonna say best case scenario, $35,000 that we get in insurance help on those two trucks. If we get that $35,000 in insurance help, do we wanna reinvest that back into what we have that's getting replaced in a year? And the other one actually technically is getting replaced in 2 years.
That just doesn't make any sense.
So
And all three of the trucks were in the water.
well, actually, the two pumpers that we'd be looking in the 3-for-2 project, the two pumpers were the two pumpers that actually pumped. The big truck did not pump the day of the flood. That was used for responding to I think we tallied it up, it was the 19 911 calls we had that 18 hours. So that truck actually never pumped in the flood, but that truck has had some electrical issues due to driving through water responding to calls.
So as far as the money goes, we all want to know about the money.
Okay?
What, looking at, are we talking about going by the proposed, or, I guess I'm just wondering, what was in your budget?
In my budget is the left column, which is the same on the proposed and on the original. That is my budgeted transfers out amount.
Okay.
So, in a perfect world, 3 trucks for 2. I'm gonna just throw out there the number of approximately 550,000.
Okay.
At that 550,000, we're gonna have approximately $35,000 of insurance money, and we're still gonna have, can you go one slide forward?
Trade-in value.
In a year and a half, we're gonna have either trade-in or private sale value. I would like to think of 150, conservatively. Honestly, I believe 150,000 for that truck. So rounding numbers, we're now at 350,000. If we do, obviously grants, USDA will finance these trucks, or finance one of them. We can pay for one or do it as a package. We'd probably do them individually. USDA has financing options, as do every truck manufacturer. Any commercial leasing company will do that for municipalities, as local banks will also do it. So if we do the USDA, there is the potential for, I believe it's close to 25 to 50,000 per truck grant, as long as we borrow some money against that truck and keep that money with them, that loan with them for at least 12 months. So the 350 mark, by trading this truck, the insurance money, we're pretty much spending the 350,000 that we were gonna have to spend next year, because next year we have to replace that truck. Now if I can write some grants, make some things happen, now we're back to possibly 250,000 that we set up on the loan program. We do have some monies next year, and now mind you, neither one of these trucks will be here till next year. We will have chassis payments upon ordering the truck, but we don't pay for the rest of the truck until it's complete. So we would have chassis payments. Ultimately, in 2020, in 2021, we had it figured for 350,000 that would come out, because I figured by the time we ordered the truck, it would probably be 2021 before we got it, which would actually put it out a year past its service life. So ultimately, loan for a couple years on both trucks and pay more than the minimum payment on the annual loan, and problem goes away within 3 years. Other thing it does is helps break up the purchase of the equipment so that we balance the budget for at least till 2040.
So I know you talked about grants and everything. Now, is any of this expense reimbursable by either FEMA or the state or anything like that because it was damaged because of the flood?
So that's questionable, to be honest with you. I actually have a meeting with FEMA on Wednesday, and I'm going to discuss this very fact. I would assume that there's some. I think that we could maybe gap some of the replacement costs versus actual replacement costs, or ACV, actual cash value, versus replacement cost. I believe that since we're forced to replace this equipment earlier than was forecasted, I think there would be something there. I'm speculating. There's no way I could know that until I sit down with them.
But all these numbers are based on not having anything from FEMA available.
Correct.
So whatever comes from FEMA would be gravy on top and help.
Exactly.
So tonight, what do you need from us?
Your thoughts? Are you, I mean, ultimately, this is very short notice. Because of the flood, I plan on having this discussion, honestly, probably this winter with everyone when I had more time to provide information and facts. And but now with obviously the fact of the flood that we're going to have to do something, whether we're fixing or repairing. I want you guys to decide whether we're going to fix stuff or replace stuff. Next question: how far do you want to take this? The chance of grants and loans in the situation we're in are going to raise us up a notch or two in being able to receive some grants. The timing for some of them grants to get them filled out, it's going to take some time. Ultimately, I would like permission to jump ahead a couple years and replace the one truck. For you guys to tell me that we're not going to stick $10,000 into what the insurance company is calling a $25,000 truck to run it for a year or two until we get it replaced. Sooner than later, we're going to need to make decisions on whether we're going to replace the pickups that are the pickup that is totaled and the one that could potentially be totaled, because eventually it's going to stop raining, things are going to turn brown, and we're going to need them again.
And they're currently not reliable.
They're out of service. The keys are locked in my desk.
That's something that we have to react to regardless of, and to be able to tie it into multiple things. The only thing that I would caution the council on is the fact that, and we'll find out more on Wednesday, is if there's a time that we can't act on anything immediately, like FEMA auditors need to look at any of this equipment. Now, what does supersede that is the fact that we have to have safety equipment in play. So I would like to discuss it with them on Wednesday and, give you what I find out on that, and you're welcome to come with if you'd like as well. But
is that meeting actually about that?
Yeah, it has to do with the city's portion of it, mostly infrastructure related, but.
Okay.
But to keep things going in the right direction, bring that information that you get Wednesday to the 30th meeting. Plan and do whatever you can do, you know, grant writing, whatever, between now and next Monday night.
You don't need to sleep.
You know, I'm just saying, whatever you can do to help you
Are you
out. to help
typing in
your
memos?
case.
Because normally you're the one that's sitting there giving me all this work. Are you guys texting? or-
But I would say that, that it might be wise for the council to give him permission to, the truck that's gotta be replaced regardless.
Right.
To give him permission to get the chassis ordered.
Yep.
Get started on that one, but not to commit to letting a truck go out of our facility until we know what FEMA's willing to do with it.
Right.
The fact that they may need to
March.
inspect it.
Go
And I-
back, but that 91, the 91 will sit in our fire hall till March.
Yeah.
We can still, as of right now, get it running. That truck hoses all of our large diameter hose for all of our in-town structure fires. It still will drive, it still will lay the hose. The pump does not pump at capacity for being a structural fire truck, but it will boost the pressure between the hydrant and the truck that is pumping. And if it lays down, it's just a really expensive Y. Water's coming in, water's going out, and we're controlling which valves it's going out. So we can still use it, but we cannot use it as a primary attack truck or a backup attack truck. So in the situation where we leave town for a call that requires 2 pump trucks, we either are taking our 2 out and having somebody else come stand by in our or we are taking 1 out and waiting for standby from another mutual aid from another community to get there.
And is that the one that they would bump you up on the list
Yes.
to replace? But
It-
you
it-
more or less need our say that we will give you permission to.
Blessing.
Blessing, I like permission.
And that one's time sensitive because there are other departments that are gonna be looking to get on that list very soon. That are in. the
And
same
again,
problem.
we're, in the big picture, you know, the estimate as of, to replace this truck as of a week ago was around $350. We have it at $325, however you want to look at it. We're doing that for about $200,000. The problem being is the whole wave to make everything flow properly is doing both trucks in the near future. And ultimately then we're actually replacing both trucks that were potentially used in the flood.
The simple version is we're advancing 1 to 2 years to not waste money on a truck that we were gonna get rid of in 1 to 2 years.
I think we need to do it, do it, and then we work with FEMA however we have to, but I think you need to
Or the chassis.
do what you need to do to keep everything going down the line, because we are gonna replace them.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cut and dry that way.
Is it fair for me to ask you at this point, are you educated enough to decide, are you thinking replacing the 91 and the pickup with this crew cab mini pumper and another pickup, or are you thinking the 3-for-2 program?
I would think the 3-for-2 because it lowers your maintenance costs. It provides you guys with everything you still need and provides a little more flexibility the way it sounds. And it keeps us getting everything replaced as quick as we possibly can. And those are my thoughts on it. It's like,
Saves other expenses besides.
and besides, like you said, everything stays balanced.
Okay.
Do we need a formal blessing or?
Are we waiting till Monday for that formal blessing?
I think you should get it now so you can order the chassis.
I would make a motion, you order the chassis now.
So,
First and second, any discussion?
No, he was.
I have a little discussion for you, which probably is not going to affect the motion, but I'd just like to say it first. The city does have a policy of doing formal bids. there is, and maybe you're aware of this, there is now something where all municipal equipment can be bought direct without going through the bid process, kind of like a state bid. The company we're looking at said, because I said, I come to the council meeting, you guys okay it, now we have to, draw up a set of specifications for the truck, now we have to do an RFP, advertise it for bids and the whole thing, and the salesman says, that all changed about 2 years ago, which we haven't done anything that put us in that situation. He says, there are governmentally approved companies that you can just buy something from. So obviously I need to check into that, because the motion you're making to go ahead and buy a chassis and build it would actually be to design a set of specs and put it out for proposals, unless we can just buy direct.
I would put it on him to get you that information, because I'm aware of certain things that can fall under that, but I haven't seen anything with fire trucks.
Call them up, tell them they'll give you the information, the chapter and verse.
I'll have the
Present it up
information
first.
sent to me yet tonight, and I'll have it on Chris's desk in the morning.
There you go.
Just saying, the way the motion was worded was, let's go ahead and get this stuff ordered, let's go ahead and do it. I just wanted to make sure we're all aware that if we don't fit in that group of people that can do that, we may have to step back a notch and go through the formal RFP process. Design specs.
Jump that hurdle when we need to, I suppose, after what you find out.
I would say your motion should state then that as long as we fall within those parameters, to go ahead and order the truck from that manufacturer. If we don't fall in those parameters, then we'll need to
That
go
goes
an
a long
RFP
way.
out.
I'd amend my motion to say that.
I'd second it again.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Refresh.
Okay, unless anybody else has anything, motion to adjourn?
No?
I would pass on a compliment to the parties who brought to my attention of the bike path, noticed the immediate cleanup of it, and they were very appreciative, and I thank you guys for getting that taken care of. It was super. That's all I had.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
First and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
They got approved. Mayor, I have a couple things for you.